I don't know what happened to my live. Let me get on my. Somebody's trying to sabotage my live, mess with my live. I gotta get this fixed. Gotta figure out how. I think it goes like that. And I'll just glue that back down. Now that was my fault. That lie that just ended by itself. That was weird. Let me see what else on. Maybe I can play some instrumental music. With this one. This thing is crazy, y'all. No. But I need to go turn that light off in there. There we go. We back again. This is my third live. Ooh, that went like gunfire. I'm going out and coming back in. I think I'm missing. No. Look like I'm told that he might be got 11 years. Hold on. No. Hold on, y'all. Let me check something out. I'm here, but it look like. Hold on. What in the world? They saying I'm checking with somebody that. Hold on. They still waiting. I was about to say I know I didn't miss nothing. Nothing. We still waiting. That was a false alarm. Are they trying to? What are they doing? Okay. They waiting. Let me do my we still waiting, y'all.
be able to leave the
I did
city
not
or the
have the
state or the
TV.
country
I'm sorry, y'all.
without
The TV was
permission.
on mute.
There are going to
Good
be
Lord.
restrictions as to that, to travel, as
The
to
whole
where he
time.
can
Y'all ain't
live,
heard
as to
nothing.
what he can do. Maybe there's a curfew. There are many, many factors that are taken into consideration when you are on supervised release. You can always petition to change those restrictions as time goes on, as you show that you're behaving yourself, etc. There may be drug tests, for example. There's a lot. There could be, for example, like unannounced searches or visits. There's a lot of, even if you're free, is what I'm trying to say, there's a lot of restrictions on your freedom.
Yeah, that's a good point. So wait, we're going to take a quick break before we get into
Oh,
Sean
these
Combs because he's going to be
breaks.
speaking soon. Real quick super chat question for you, Serena. This is from Annette McMullen. Thank you so much for the super chat question. If this case was not involving a mega superstar, if and how would this be different? In other words, if the defendant was not Sean Combs, how would this play out?
I can
First
do
of
the
all,
poll
you
on
would
here.
never know about it. There are
Exactly.
so many people, and I like that we have this platform to say this. There are so many people who are going through, similar charges or worse charges or easier charges that nobody ever knows about. It's cases like this that actually educate the public as to their rights, our rights, the criminal justice system in general. So it's great. It's actually great that we have this program, and it's great that we're able to kind of follow these things. But you should know that there is a difference, because the people who don't get that attention may not necessarily have the means to hire competent representation, or maybe the type of representation that they really want to speak for them. They may not be able to kind of get the public behind them to get that support. We see that with Diddy. We see that with other, high profile cases. And sometimes judges and lawyers get away with certain things when there isn't that microscope on them. So in a certain way, celebrities are watched more when these things happen, and therefore, judges and attorneys are held to the highest level of our law. But in other ways, sometimes we see that celebrities are looked upon to be made an example of. So
True.
it's potentially a wash in the end. But the biggest thing that you get out of this type
Thank
of
everyone for
situation
coming
is that
back
the
to the
public gets
live.
to learn a
Um,
lot about the
this is
system.
our third go
And a lot about
round.
these crimes.
They
I mean,
have
Whoever
two
became an
more
expert in
people to
sex
speak,
trafficking, right?
and we
Serena, for
should
good.
have.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. So Sean Combs' defense
Oh,
attorney, Mark Agnifilo, is asking for a 14-month sentence. They're saying we're asking for a lot, highlighting, says Sean Combs has genuine psychological challenges, that he suffers from PTSD. They're asking for leniency. Another lawyer is going to speak. Sean Combs is going to speak. Hopefully we get to that sentence. Let's take a quick break. We will be right back with our live coverage.
I usually move the thing up, but I broke. Well, the thing broke, so we stuck here, y'all. Let me see, can I find some free background music? Cause this is getting ridiculous. I was shown how to do this. Y'all bear with me. I gotta type this. And the stand is on top of the. Let me get my glasses. I ain't got my glasses on. Royalty free sound effects. I don't need no sound effects. Royalty free copy. Okay, let's see. I forgot the one I be using. I don't want to do that. Well, that's not it. Okay, here we go. I can't share it, but it's deep house. Let me see what this is. Let me sign in because on my page I don't get commercials. I'm gonna play us some music, y'all. Okay, they saying P. Diddy about to speak in court. So after he gets through, it should be the verdict. Let me see. What is it? Oh, I can't turn it up. Hold on. They say it's free. This one I be using, so it should be good. I got us some music going. On the live now, it said Combs. Wait a minute, it went too fast. Doctors found that Sean had PTSD. I didn't know that. I didn't know his dad was murdered. See, that's what I'm telling y'all about. Um, when I was in school and learned about um, what makes a person do certain things, it comes from their upbringing. He had a major depressive disorder. His family didn't tell him how his father died. His father died when he was a baby. So we'll play this in the background. It's only 3 minutes and 20 seconds. It'll go to the next one. While we wait. I should have thought of this earlier. Okay. I hope the music is soothing. This sound like the music too when they play when they put you on hold. But it sounds like people. Let me turn it up. I can't see that. Let me turn it down just a little bit. Just trying to pray. Play something while we wait, y'all. I get bored easily. Oh, his dad died from a recreational activity with gone bad. That's what the lie about think it said. Thank you. Yes. Excuse me, y'all. All
And
right,
welcome back
y'all.
to Law and Crime, everybody. Our live coverage of the Sean Diddy Combs sentencing. I'm Jesse Weber. Thank you for joining us on our continued coverage of this. We are in hour 7 maybe now. We are hopefully coming to the end of this. We are waiting any minute now for Sean Combs to deliver his statement to the court. We already know he provided a letter in advance of this. This is in advance of him officially being sentenced on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. It will all be up to Judge Arun Subramanian on which way he will sentence Sean Combs. He indicated earlier that he doesn't see a reason to deviate from the 5 to 7 years, that range of prison, but he's also heard a lot today from attorneys, from Sean Combs' family. And I will note that right before we're about to hear from Sean Combs, and by the way, I say that there's no cameras allowed in that courtroom, but we're reporting to you live. Prosecutor Christy Slavic made the point that only one of the 5 defense attorneys who spoke today mentioned Combs' alleged victims in their presentations. That it was all about Sean Combs and his why he should be released, that he suffered enough, but not mentioning the victims. And I wonder if that's going to be a problem. Let me bring back in Serena Townsend. Let me bring back in Jay Richardson. Let me bring back in Sierra Gillespie. Sierra, I'll start with you. That is interesting, right? I mean, there has been a lack of talking about Jane. There has been a lack of talking about Cassie Ventura. Obviously, the defense has particular positions about them throughout the course of this case, throughout the course of litigation, moving into sentencing. But that is a point.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to make sure it was Sierra, not Serena. So I was going to see if Serena started to talk, but that was in fact for Sierra. So I will go ahead and answer that question now. I mean, talking about Kathy, talking about Jane, I mean, these are very vital, right? Because they're a huge part of the trial. And I think that Judge Arun Samaranian, of course, has to consider these things. I mean, he said it early on today. It was a question mark. The defense was saying, okay, I don't even know if these people should be considered as part of it, as part of victims. But he ruled, yes, they are in fact victims. And I think, of course, it's going to be in the back of his mind the testimony that they had, going through and recounting some of the trauma that they had. Of course, that's something that's going to be coming up. And I do have to wonder if when he did himself does finally address the court, if he's going to mention these people, because that's the allegation here, right, is trauma and abuse. And I wonder if he's going to say, yeah, I did some things wrong, here's how I learned, and here's how I'm going to get better. And I guess I wonder if that's something that he might address.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because Serena, in Sean Combs' letter, okay, to the court, he said, "My sadness was my motivator. I have to admit my downfall was rooted in my selfishness. The scene and images of me assaulting Cassie play over and over in my head daily. I literally lost my mind. I was dead wrong for putting my hands on the woman that I love. I'm sorry for that and always will be. My domestic violence will always be a heavy burden that I will have to forever carry." He said earlier on, "I take full responsibility and accountability for my past wrongs. I want to apologize and say how sincerely sorry I am for all the hurt and pain that I've caused others by my conduct." Two questions for you, Serena. A, do you think that's what he's going to focus on, the victims in this case? And B, does he have to be careful? Does he have to be careful saying that he did this, that he apologizes for what he did, because he might have an appeal? If he's sentenced to 10 years in prison, he's going to fight appeal. If he admits to wrongdoing, if he admits to doing this, can that jeopardize the appeal?
It's a good question. So first of all, I do think he's going to try to focus on the victims. Certainly now that the prosecutor kind of put that out there, I think even if he hadn't been prepared to do that, hearing that, he might say, look, you know, my lawyers did their thing, but the remorse that I have to give over for my victims has to come directly from me. You know, he might kind of spin it that way to make it seem like it was planned that way. Whether he has to be careful, you know, I think in a balancing situation here, he's really got to show as much as possible his remorse. He's got to show the judge that he is willing to change, and he can't be callous about it, and he really can't be equivocal. I think he really has to go full in if he wants any of that mitigation and sympathy to be thrown his way. So even if he's thinking about appealing, you know, there's a lot of things that you can appeal, not necessarily having to do with his guilt. It could be a procedural thing that the prosecution messed up when you appeal something. So I do think on balance, he really just needs to go full force and get on his knees and beg.
Well, what he's very careful of saying is, "I'm sorry I transported them for the purposes of sex." Or he didn't say that. He goes, "I'm sorry for domestic violence. I'm sorry for hurting people." So he can admit that without admitting technically or specifically the crimes that he was convicted of. Joe, I just want to give everybody an update. Sean Combs stands at the defense table. Oh, okay. One of the hardest things I've had to handle has been having to be quiet and not express how sorry I am for my actions. So this is him speaking. "I don't take that lightly. I would like to apologize to Cassie Ventura and her family." Joe, that's the first statement we've heard from Sean Combs in open court today. Oh, at least regarding an apology.
Yeah, and you know, he's, you know, it's kind of like I'm standing here going, okay, you know, keep coming, you know, what else, right? You know, he's saying, frankly, what's going to be expected to be said. And it's interesting, to your point, he's kind of seems to be apologizing, like in writing and sometimes, to, you know, towards the things that he didn't get convicted for. But we're having this whole discussion about making sure that acquitted conduct is not included. So once again, you've got these different dynamics playing out. And it's going to be interesting to see where it goes and how believable he comes out. And can he come off like it's not about him? Can he come off like it's not him being narcissistic? And can he come off understanding in the eyes of the judge, in the eyes of the public, why maybe he ought to get more time? And despite that, I'm asking you, Your Honor, to give me less time, and here's why. Is there an acknowledgement that you're not unreasonable for doing any of this? He's not going to give up the ghost of all that because they want to keep all their appealable issues. But how's he going to come off the way that he needs to come off to maximize his opportunity here?
Well, this is the next thing he just said. I apologize to Jane for bringing you into my mess. I would like to apologize to all the victims of domestic violence. Remember, he has to be charged with domestic violence. He wasn't convicted of domestic violence. I know that the disgusting video triggered people, meaning the video of him beating Cassie Ventura. I was sick from the drugs. I needed help, but I didn't get the help. Okay, so let me break this down in real time, Serena. So now he's apologized both to Cassie and Jane. Again, not for transporting them for sex work, but for hurting them for domestic violence. He goes, I knew better. My faith taught me better. I'm not this larger than life person. I'm just a human being. I'm trying my best. I lost my freedom and the opportunity to raise my children and be there for my mother. I lost all my businesses. Now, again, your thoughts on this, because this really is the first time he's had an opportunity substantively to make a comment about this.
Yeah, and I completely agree with both of you that he's being very specific about what he's apologizing for. And he has to. It is true. He wants to show that complete remorse without really admitting to certain things. Look, this is the opportunity and the time where a defendant who has been convicted gets on his knees and begs for mercy. Whether a judge is already too jaded to really believe him, which I would not blame him for, is to be seen, right? It's very easy to be sorry now. It's very easy to say the things that he's saying after he's been convicted. Now, I do want to say that everybody does have the right to a trial, and I don't necessarily think that him taking the case to trial should be held against him and should be deemed as him not being remorseful. But on the other hand, here he is having tried to fight all of the allegations and only now making any sort of admission to any issues. So I don't think a judge is going to be very much swayed by this newest apology, just like any other defendant.
So just let everybody know, my battery's breaking up a little bit. I couldn't hear that last part, Serena. We're going to work on getting this fixed. But I do want to give everybody an update. So Sean Combs says, I hate myself right now. I have been stripped down to nothing. I want to apologize to my 7 children. I'm so sorry. You deserve better. To my mother, I feel you taught me better. Sierra, I go to you. As somebody who's been following this case from the beginning, what are you taking away from what he's saying?
I mean, this is a day of reckoning for Sean P. Diddy Combs, and something that we were hypothesizing before we finally were hearing the words that he was saying was that he may in fact point out the victims in this case and apologize. I mean, I believe we talked about that just minutes ago, and here he is doing just that. My question in all of this, I will be very interested to see what Elizabeth Milner says when she comes out, because right now she is in the courthouse, so she is there watching P. Diddy as he's saying these immortal words. I want to know his emotion in all of it. I mean, we can read the words. He's saying, I'm sorry to Cassie, I'm sorry to Jane, I'm sorry to my children and my mother. You taught me better. I threw everything away. I ruined everything. But what is the emotion there? Is it just words? Is he completely stone cold face? Or is he crying? Is he upset? And I think all of these things are something that Judge Arun Subramanian will be clocking, because I mean, that's really what it is. Is he truly sorry? Is he truly remorseful for everything that he's done? I mean, he's now been convicted of a crime here, the transportation to engage in prostitution, which, to your point, Jesse, we haven't heard an apology for all of that. We've heard an apology for the domestic violence side of things. And I mean, I will just guess that Diddy might go on for a bit longer, as it is his first time really to address all of these accounts. But I want to know the emotion behind all of it.
It's a great point, and that's obviously something that Elizabeth Milner would know, because she's inside there, she can hear it for herself. But if we're clocking this, if we're clocking that he's not directly addressing the federal crimes that he was convicted of, you know Judge Subramanian is going to say it too.
I don't know what they mean.
He says, I let down my community. I wanted to show we could take care of our own problems. I got lost. I'm not this bad person. I'm sorry to my community. I let you all down. People can change. I know I changed. There is a part about this, Joe, and he goes, sometimes you have to go through life experiences. These are not excuses. I can't change the past, but I can change the future. I beg your honor for mercy to be a father again, to be a son again, a leader of my community again, to get the help I need. Now, Joe, look, we're criticizing parts of this. from a legal point of view, from a human point of view, could the judge be persuaded that this is a guy who's really learned his lesson, that could be a force of good, that he wasn't convicted of racketeering and sex trafficking, that while transportation to engage in prostitution is a serious crime, and there were elements of violence and drugs that were a part of it, and this happened many times, that perhaps he should not have to spend a significant portion of his life now in prison.
I wonder would he
People
be
are at the
eligible
risk of
for
coming off like I'm
parole?
banging on Diddy. And this is not a banging, Diddy Day kind of thing for me. But if he's learned his lesson in 14 months, he'll learn it better in 2 or 3 years. And so what that means is there's got to be another reason over and above him learning his lesson. That's part of it. But over and above him learning his lesson, for him to be released more sooner than later. And that could be the force of good that he could be. I don't want to minimize that. I don't want to minimize the fact that he's, he's got ingenuity, he's creative, he has a huge platform. Everybody's going to be watching the things that he does next. And so that would have to be more of the reason to let him get out earlier. Because again, he knows how to succeed. And in all of these areas where he says, because of, he lost his father and it made him more likely to
They let them, them people named Chrysalis though, even they were not bad.
Was, he overcame the odds in so many other ways.
Lord.
So that doesn't fly either. So it's really gotta be his ability to do something maybe that almost nobody else could do coming from this situation. So I'm not gonna minimize the power of that and how the judge may evaluate that, but it's gonna have to be that even more than just learning the lesson.
He just said, I don't want to let God down. I have no one to blame but myself. I know I will never put my hands on another person again. I'm willing to comply with any conditions. Me sharing my story is not a scheme to get less time. This story is tragic. If Your Honor gives me a chance to share my story, this has a positive impact. Thank you to the jury. Your Honor gave me the confidence in the jury to believe that I did not have to testify. They sacrificed 8 weeks. I thank them. I thank them for not guilty. Serena, back to you. Your thoughts on this?
Well, here's the thing. Sean Diddy Combs always had a platform to tell his story. He didn't need to be convicted of heinous crimes to be able to inspire people and use his power.
I'm always
for
taking
good.
these glasses
I feel it's such a shame that somebody who did come from such a difficult and broken background and was able to pursue his dreams and get there, then turned around and used it to manipulate people, to harm people, people who are very vulnerable to him. And he used his power for bad. Maybe he did some good things. Maybe his children love him. That's true. But there are many, many convicted felons with children who were innocent and are always going to be innocent, waiting for their fathers or mothers to come home. He's not unique in that situation. What made Sean Combs unique is that he grew out of a terrible situation, and instead of using that to better his community and better the people around him, he used them and ended up doing these heinous crimes towards the women in his life. So I don't know that it rings so favorably to a judge that he's now telling his story in this way.
Well, he might have been listening to us, because Sierra, you know what he just said? I take full responsibility for my Mann Act convictions. They want you to make an example of me. I want you to think about making an example of what a person can do if they get another chance. Consider the beautiful children who spoke for me. Again, I've heard, sometimes we have both heard statements from defendants when they're sentenced. Sometimes it really has no impact. Sometimes they're saying, the jury got it wrong, I'm innocent. Sometimes their words kind of are hollow. By the way, Sean Combs just rapped. He says, no matter what anyone says, I am truly sorry. Thank you, Your Honor. I'm curious from your perspective, does this one stand out to you, Sierra? Is it different?
I think this does stand out. I mean, just minutes ago, we were saying, okay, we haven't heard about the Mann Act. We haven't heard about the transportation to engage in prostitution. And we said Judge Arun Subramanian would be blocking this. So It seems as though this may be a strategic move on the part of P. Diddy to mention this and to say right out of the gate, hey, I'm sorry to Cassie, Jane, etc., all the people that he hurt and how. Then he talked about his family, and then now he's talking about his conviction here. And I do have to wonder if perhaps he went through and, talked it through with his defense attorneys. Hey, here's what I'm thinking of saying. What do you think I should include? What do you think I should, exclude? All of those sort of things. I think it's interesting that he says this isn't any sort of scheme here in order for me to get less time. Make an example out of me in the way that I can go on and share my story. And this kind of goes to what Serena was saying. P. Diddy was already a public figure. He didn't have to be convicted of a crime like this in order to share his story. I mean, we've seen a lot of other celebrities who have gone through addiction or things like that who haven't been convicted and show us a positive change as a role model. So I think it's interesting, but I do think it's strategic he brought up the Mann Act.
Okay, Serena, what did you say to me before? You go, if he might change his opinion, he might take a break.
Mm-hmm.
Judge says, let's take 5 minutes. 5 minutes. What does that mean? What does that
How
mean?
much case law can...
Is he changing his sentence?
Oh man, 5 minutes is that perfect amount of time to show that you're taking it seriously, but not yet quite enough time to really change the words that you were planning on saying. I don't think that he's going to change what he intended to say when he first started today's session. I think he obviously wants to give everybody a break. He wants the optics of showing that he is taking everything in that came out today, but it doesn't feel to me like 5 minutes is enough to really change what he was planning on saying, in my opinion.
Is that because, and if you agree, Joe, is that because what Sean Combs said was very similar to what he wrote in the letter? It doesn't change the narrative in any way. It may be different to hear it directly from Sean Combs himself. There were potential variations, taking full responsibility for the Mann Act convictions. But if you agree with Serena, is that because it's really not substantively on a whole different from what the judge already read in that letter?
Yeah, and that I think he's going to be more inclined to be moved by the letters of others and the sentencing guidelines and the things that are already in place.
All right.
Anyway, the question is,
We
how much
almost
he
there.
moves off the dime from that. Again, he should consider what was said today. I think I said that earlier. But, he probably had an idea what he was going to do. And P. Diddy, he himself, maybe he was the judge was tipping toward doing whatever he was going to do. And there's a question as to whether he could move it a tick one way or the other by saying what he would say. But I think he had a good idea of where he was going to be. And I think that considering what other folks would have to say will probably be equally important.
This is about to be a shocker.
I believe it's fine just said. The judge will ask you what you think, Jesse Weber. I don't think so. I don't think the judge is interested in what I have to say. What are we predicting in terms of a sentence here now that we are only potentially a few minutes away? We've been covering it all day. Sierra, we've been covering it for months now. I'll start with you. What are you anticipating for a sentence for Sean Diddy Combs after he was convicted of these 2 Mann Act violations?
I think that, per what Serena says, Judge Arun Subramanian came into this with the thought in his mind of what he wanted the sentence to be. He's going to consider it for his next 5 minutes. But if you're asking me, my prediction is still that 5 to 7 year range. I don't think that he's going to go on the lower end, what the defense wants, that 14 months.
It's not going to be over 10.
I don't think it's going to be quite as long as what the prosecution is hoping for with the 11 years, which is a significant amount of time. But 5 to 7 years to me is still pretty significant. I mean, if we're talking about his young daughter, Love, she is, a toddler at this point. Add 5 years, and she is nearly headed into later elementary school. That's a huge chunk of a child's life. And so I do think the 5 to 7 year range, I'm maybe going to guess 5 years, if that's my guess.
Serena, I'll ask you what you think in terms of the sentence, and also, what can we expect from Judge Arun Subramanian? Is he going to be making a significant long statement?
I don't think he's going to get that long.
So I agree with Sierra. I'm looking at single-digit sentence here. I think the judge is going to probably just meet in the middle between, the lower end of the sentence and the 11 years that the prosecution is asking for. So I would be comfortable saying probably 5-6 years is around where I think this will land. And like Sierra mentioned, the charges that he was actually convicted of are serious, but in the grand scheme of things, with respect to the RICO charge that he could have been facing, are far less severe than what he would have been facing. So I do think there's going to be a significant cut on the sentence. And the judge is going to give a statement, probably not an extraordinarily long statement, but a statement explaining his rationale, a statement that says, I've heard from both sides, I credit such and such from this side of the bench, I credit such and such from this side of the bench, I don't find these particular arguments persuasive. He's going to break it down a little bit, and he's going to give his rationale, and then probably end with the actual sentence.
You tell me, Joe, is there a possibility you could really significantly downgrade this to 14 months, 16 months, 18 months? Why? Because he said earlier, after hearing the children, it was important to hear them. It was important to hear them. We just heard Sean Combs, his defense attorneys, almost all of them spoke. I believe almost all of them spoke. I don't know if that changed his consensus about this. You heard Sean Combs talk about the vile conditions he was in for over a year. Does that matter? Does that not? He wasn't convicted of the more serious charges, which, by the way, when you talk about Mann Act convictions, and when they can reach the higher end of the scale, it's when they're usually coupled with a sex trafficking operation or a racketeering operation. There was violence a part of this. There were aggravating conditions a part of this. But are we looking at it the wrong way? Could the judge come back and shock us all and say, 14 months, 18 months? Joe?
We finna be shocked,
It's
for
possible,
real.
but I don't think it's probable because, among other things, if he really deviates a long way down, I think he's going to have some explaining to do. And so he's going to explain himself anyway, right? But I don't know that people jump up and down and say, there's some people that really love Diddy. He comes in too high. Oh my God, he gave him 8, 9, 10 years. The sky is falling. There might be a few people. I think there will be more people that may say that this was a slap in the face of the people that were the victims in this case, et cetera, and really deviates down a great deal. So I think where we end up arriving is still somewhere in the sentencing guidelines. I think we stay there now. It's possible. I don't think we're looking at it the wrong way, Jesse, but it's possible that despite how we're looking at it, judge being the judge can say that for some reason this is an unusual circumstance. I think he's gone through enough. I'm compelled by him saying X, Y, Z. He was not convicted of those other crimes. I'm looking at it in light of the crimes that he was actually convicted of, et cetera, and arrive there. I don't think it happens that way.
Him saying, I want you to make an example of what a person can do if they get another chance. To me, that felt like a powerful statement, particularly, again, when you go to this idea of the work that he's been doing inside, and if you be taken at his word, he genuinely feels remorseful, wants to lead a different life, has the opportunity, the resources, the prestige, where people will listen, and maybe they can change their lives. In that sense, if you take it all as true, there is a benefit there, but it doesn't negate what he did. It doesn't negate what he was convicted of. It doesn't negate that there are victims in this case. It's not a victimless crime. Sierra, we have this comment from It's Me Trish. He wasn't worried about his child or his children when he did all this. Why should the judge worry about the child?
That's a hard one, because if we're talking about children, they're innocent in all of this. I mean, none of us really picked our parents. I'm sure Diddy's children, they didn't pick him as a dad. They just kind of, were born, and that's what it was. And so the kids are innocent if you're thinking about it in that way. They didn't choose their dad. They didn't choose that he would be caught up in all of this and go into the conviction. So if we're looking on that hand and that sort of thing, yeah, it is valuable to consider that these kids would be raised without their father, and that's tricky. However, to the point of whatever our viewer was who wrote in this question, was P. Diddy thinking about his kids when he violated the Mann Act, when he did this crime that he's now been convicted of? If he really was a great dad, it was showing the video here of him being, a caring father who's a family man. But was he thinking about his children when he was going through and all of the allegations that we heard at trial a lot?
So sorry to interrupt. I want to let you know, Judge Subramanian is back.
Okay.
He's begun officially delivering his sentence. He says to the court, he says to Sean Combs, At the outset, I want you to understand, Mr. Combs, you are not being sentenced for acquitted conduct. So he's not being sentenced for racketeering. He's not being sentenced for sex trafficking. But under 3553, which by the way is the federal statute regarding imposition of sentence, under 3553, I must consider many things. Mr. Combs, you are a self-made artist who has inspired community of color. Okay, so we're stopping right there. We're waiting for these updates to come in real time. Serena, does that I'm going to tell you, there's like a but, right? Yes, you've done many things, but, and that might not be good for Sean Combs.
When a judge gives any sort of remarks like that, there's always a but. And when you start hearing good things, be prepared for the flip side.
Amen.
It's coming.
He finna go
And I
prison.
will say to your earlier comments about turning life around, this is a very different type of crime than your typical one-day event. You know, yes, he was a great guy in certain other aspects of his life, perhaps, but he was living a lifestyle of these crimes. It's very different from a defendant who appears in front of a judge who had one bad day, right? Got robbed one person, got into a fight with one person and stabbed that person. This was a lifestyle.
Okay, another update. Judge says, we saw the video. The free game course in the NDC, the court hopes you continue to expand it. You are devoted to your family. The court, of course, considers the collateral consequences. The court has to consider all of your history here. And that's true, by the way. The factors to be considered in imposing a sentence are I'm looking at the statute, the nature and circumstances of the offense, the history and characteristics of the defendant, the need for the sentence to be imposed, the kinds of sentences available, the kind of sentence and the sentencing range, any pertinent policy statement, the need to avoid unwarranted sentence disparities among defendants. So, just looking for an update here. Okay. Okay. A history of good works can't wash away the record in this case. You abused these women. You used that abuse to get your way. Freak-offs and hotel nights. The evidence of the abuse is massive. I was sitting right here during the testimony.
Wow.
Joe, this isn't good for Sean Combs.
He might get over 10,
No,
y'all.
it's not good for Sean Combs. So he started off with good stuff. He said, but on the other hand, you know what I mean? Because to my mind, everything could be different, but a lot of times you start off with the part, not with the part that you're going to end with. You know what I mean? Here's the good news, but here's the bad news, and here we are because of the bad news, as opposed to here's the bad news, and here's the good news, and here's where we are because of the good news. I think the order of things may dictate that, you know, he's going to come at him, and it's not going to be a low-end type sentence.
I don't think so
This
either
is
no
very
more.
consistent with what we talked about before, where that video was being played of Sean Combs, where you look at his history of helping others, you look at his works in the community. You and I had talked about it. The argument would be, yes, but at the same time he was committing crimes. Or after his apology video for Cassie, he was accused of committing crimes. It seems that the judge is being consistent with this, and I apologize if I have to cut you off if the judge says something, but your thoughts?
No, please do cut me off because I want the updates as much as you do, Jesse, and so do our viewers. But I think it's confusing here, right? But two things can be true. P. Diddy can have all the love in the world for his children, and he can be a great dad to them. But on the other side of the coin, he did commit these acts, and it is violence. And I think the thing that was most telling to me from what we've heard. All right, let's hear that update.
Yep, Sierra, I'm going to throw it right back to you, but this is the judge. This was subjugation. That is the reality of what happened. These offenses irreparably harmed two women. You plied them with drugs. Why did it happen so long? You had the power and resources to keep it going. You were more than a John. Again, Sierra, it was the idea of this happened so many times. I think that was something the judge was going to consider here.
And what he said very specifically is that I was sitting right here. I heard the testimony. And I think that is what is so vital when we were talking about the way that the judge was going to end up with all of this sentencing, is the fact that it wasn't today he decided it. It wasn't in the 3 months that he had to go through and read all of those letters. No, it was when he was sitting there in the courtroom, seeing Cassie and Jane and Mia and all of the testimony there, that this happened over and over again. It wasn't, to your point, to what Serena said earlier, this wasn't a one-time thing. This was a pattern of abuse that the prosecution put on and display, and then here we have a conviction. And so I do think that all of this is kind of running through Judge Arun Submarinian's mind as he's coming forth, putting down this sentence, because, I mean, it's really hard to ignore.
All right, this just came in. A significant sentence is required to deter. You say you're sorry and you won't do it again. After Miss Ventura's civil lawsuit was filed, after the video was public, an investigation started. You had a brutal hotel night with Jane, punched her in the head. Serena, that is the key here. That is something we have talked about during the course of the day. It didn't deter him. There were significant episodes that came out after the investigation, after the apology. He was arrested with materials in his hotel room that would indicate a freak-off. I think we're looking here at maybe 5 to 7. I don't know yet.
It might be over.
But I think we're looking at significant prison time here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think the judge makes an incredible note that, you know, you had the chance to deter. You were not deterred. You were given an opportunity over and over again, specifically during the investigation, and you can't be stopped. And if you can't be stopped, I'm going to have to be the one to stop you.
Yep. And by the way, the judge has considered his history. He said about the fact that, he became Sean Combs after his father died. That is especially impressive given the early violent death of your father and the trauma that must have left. So he's appreciating all of this, but at the same time, he's hitting all the factors, and he's talking about the evidence that came out during the course of this trial. He just said, Jane says he told her, take this pill, go out there, bleep him, I don't care. The court is not convinced this would not happen again. The court has considered the programs. They are outweighed by the trial record in this case. Now I'm wondering here, Joe, are we talking double digits?
I think we're going a little higher. We'll see how high we go. But 5 to 7 at least, and maybe even a little bit more.
I think you're gonna be over 10 now, y'all.
And there's an argument that the record supports that. Diddy was extra arrogant, and the length of time, I think, is incredibly persuasive and moving for the judge. Obviously, this is not something that happened once or twice. He got his hands off the cookie jar. This was built into what Diddy did. This was his culture, and he was truly lawless. Just to put it where it really is. And so, the judge has been very honest about, I don't think that this deters you. And, I tell you, that tracks with me. Maybe we're all wrong, but to go off of what we've had happen and had said and had done and the trial record, that's not unreasonable for the judge to say that.
I am wondering also, Serena, if this is grounds for an appeal, where the court says, I'm not sentencing you on racketeering or sex. Okay, hold on. Here we go. Exploitation and violence against women must be met with real accountability to promote respect for the law. Okay, hold on one second. I'm getting the sentence right now. Okay.
Here we
go. Oh boy.
I'm sweating.
Exploitation and violence against women must be met with real accountability to promote respect for the law. The court reaches a few conclusions. 135 months would be more than necessary. Now, I don't know if that means that that's the actual sentence right now, but 135 months is over 11 years in prison.
I knew.
So over 11 years in prison would be more than necessary. That's what the judge is saying here, Serena. I don't know if that's the official sentence as of yet. We're waiting to get confirmation about that. But what does that say?
Well, just to throw that number out there like that means that at least he was considering the 11 years that the prosecution put forth, and maybe even more than that. It sounds like he's kind of tempering it, like that is more than necessary and it'll be less than the 11. But it also sounds like he at least considered it very seriously as an option.
Now I'm wondering, Sierra, are we talking 7 years? I mean, again, it's something we talked about earlier. Maybe the benefit of the family speaking and the benefit of the work that he's done was not to get to 11 years, but not to go lower
I gotta edit
than
that
the
out.
5 to 7
But they
range.
do our people wrong.
So that may have been the benefit, but I'm wondering if 7 years is what we might be looking at. Again, I'm waiting for official confirmation on the sentence here, Sierra.
I think that is possible here, that maybe he's saying, okay, yes, the prosecution, the government brought forward this number of 11 years. Yeah, that is more than necessary based on, oh, we actually have an update, Jesse, I'm gonna throw it back to you.
Yep, a sentence over 11 years is not reasonable. So anybody that thought he would get 20 years, that's not happening. A sentence over 11 years is not reasonable. Even the probation department recommends a sentence less than half of that. But 14 months time served, that would not be sufficient. So he has rejected the defense's recommendation of 14 months. In other words, Diddy is not getting out of prison. He is not getting out of prison today. When he would, we're waiting. I'm not, it's not like I have these updates and I'm purposely delaying. I'm getting to them in real time as we are getting them. Sierra, so again, we're now looking at between 14 months and 11 years, but
I think gonna be 6.
again, going back to this idea, we're looking at 7.
I mean, all speculation as of right now, but I think the most important thing is what you just said there, Jesse. P. Diddy, Sean Combs, is not getting out of jail today. And the 14-month recommendation that the defense brought has just been thrown completely out the window. The judge says, no, that's not sufficient enough. And I think what he's saying could be taken in a couple of different ways. One, that the 11 years is sufficient. Yes, I mean, based on your conviction here, because again, remember, this is a conviction. 11 years makes sense. It checks out. I agree with the prosecution. But to what Serena said earlier, perhaps, oh, and you do have a new update.
I think we have the official sentence right now.
50
Sean
months.
Diddy Combs, after being convicted of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. The
5.
judge has just said, here the data shows a wide variety of sentences. Weighing all of the relevant factors, the court determines that the sentence is 50 months of incarceration.
You got 50
So
months.
50 months of incarceration is a little over 4 years. It's 4.6
Wow.
years in prison. Now, that is a bit lower than what
He got
the
50
range was of
months.
5 to 7 years, Sierra. Let's start there. If I'm reading this correct, and we're talking 50 months, and I'm waiting for, we have another update coming in, I'm just waiting to see what it is. But right now, it appears that Sean Combs has officially been sentenced to 50 months of incarceration, so 4 years in prison. We talk about time served, right, about a year. Are we talking now then 3 years, right, Sierra?
Yeah, so about 3 more years based on the 1 year that he has already served. And I guess, I mean, it is a win for P. Diddy, and that the government asked for 11. You know, the recommendation was 5 to 7, which a lot of us guessed would happen. I mean, yes, he wanted to be out today. That was his goal. The defense, of course, wanting the 14 months. But 3 years compared to the 11, the judge says, yeah, that's warranted. I mean, there's a huge difference in the range there, more than a decade versus less than half of the decade. We've got another update, Jesse, back to you.
Yeah. Serena, Sean Combs was sentenced to 50 months of incarceration. Judge Subramanian, so a little over 4 years. That minus the 14 months already served. Is that the appropriate sentence, Serena?
Well, I'm sure Diddy is not thrilled to not walk out today, but he should be pretty happy with his defense team.
I know that's the
I think
truth.
The judge giving less than half of the prosecutor's recommendation and also less than what the pre-sentence report had said is a win for him. I do believe that 4 years is a win in this particular case.
Joe, what did it? Was it his letter? Was it the letters of family? Was it the children speaking? Was it the work that he's doing behind bars? Was it the nature of these charges? You know, as much as we say that, look, the judge was not convinced to throw out the charges, right? The defense put forward that motion saying transportation to engage in prostitution should be thrown out. This is not prostitution, it's protected by the First Amendment. The judge didn't buy it. But the argument, hey, he wasn't convicted of racketeering, he wasn't convicted of sex trafficking, just the prostitution charges, can't create a disparity based on other defendants who are sentenced. Maybe 4 years is appropriate and won't be overturned on appeal.
Yeah, I mean, I think he had to position this a certain way. There's a couple things to figure in. First of all, we got to go back to the fact that the defense did an enormous job in getting him off of the most serious charges, right? So we're talking about something that's going to be smaller, that's going to be less time anyway. Next, there's a probation department recommendation, right? Which put things in a certain place. And it sounds like even though the judge talked
All right,
about
y'all, we got the sentence. I'm finna end the live.
and he said 14 months would have been entirely unreasonable.
Let me see what else they're gonna say
I'm
first.
hearing it correctly, he still is in line in that he doesn't want to do something that'll necessarily be appealable, and he wants to arrive somewhere not too far afield from the recommendations themselves. And so again, here's Diddy in a situation where he did a lot better than he might have. And you know, that 3 years is gonna go by in no time. And the day that he was found guilty of most of everything, it ensured that he would have a date that he would get home at some point anyway. So he will get home. He's better off than he may have been, than a lot of people would have been, even though he's not coming home today.
Serena, does he serve the full 3 years, or does he serve 85%? In other words, would he serve 2.5 years?
So there is opportunity for him to get out earlier on good behavior, and so the calculation is not exact. And time will tell whether he will be getting out with some time off from the full 3. I know it's a 4-year sentence. Obviously, the 14 months counts. You already deduct that. I mean, that's definitely coming off because he does have credit for the time served. So already it's less than the sentence that he's getting, 4 years. But yeah, he could very easily be walking out sooner rather than later. So the children will have their father home sooner than they expected. And as Joe mentioned before, he can be on his comeback tour, in no time.
We had a poll up. What do you think Diddy's sentence will be? So 31% said less than 5 years. They were correct. It's interesting as we're processing the sentence of 4 years, time served, 3, maybe 85%, so 2.5, 3 years to serve behind bars. I wonder if he's actually going to now have to serve it at the MDC because it's it's a lesser sentence than we were anticipating. I will say the court imposes a fine of $500,000, including to defray the costs of imprisonment. There is no restitution, but there is forfeiture as reflected in the order. There is a $5,000 fine under the statute and a special assessment of $200. Sierra, I go to you. This is interesting because I also wonder what the reaction is going to be outside that courthouse in a few minutes. What we're going to hear from the attorney.
Okay, y'all.
What we're going to hear from supporters.
He got 50 months, 1 year time served.
Or people who were there opposed to Sean Combs. Have you seen anything outside since the sentence has been read?
Excuse me, y'all.
Jesse, after the verdict came down, you could feel it in the air. It was, intense. You could actually feel the emotion. Now that the sentence has been handed down, it seems to me like no one around us actually knows that it was handed down. I mean, it did just happen. We're probably one of the first ones to report it at all, but there's been There's been no cheering. There's been no free Diddy, in support of Diddy. There's been no opposition to Diddy. That has been pretty interesting to me overall. I mean, as far as the attorneys, I said this about the verdict, and I'm going to say about this too. I think it's a win for P. Diddy. I mean, the fact that he was up against this RICO charge, the racketeering conspiracy, had he been convicted of that, he could have faced essentially the rest of his life behind bars. Now he had pretty much the lowest charge that he was convicted of, this transportation to engage in prostitution. And now, based on what Serena is saying with the 4 years, and maybe he could serve less based on, good behavior, etc. I'm going to say that's a huge win for Diddy, especially when his life was in the balance. And I wonder if that's what we're going to hear. I wonder if prosecutors are going to say, we asked for the 11 years. The judge says it was warranted, and yet we didn't get the 11 years. And I wonder if the defense is going to say, it's still too much. It's far too long. Get him out with his children. We're going to appeal. I mean, so there's still a lot ahead.
Well, first of all, the judge said this is, quote, hard time, but also
All right,
that he's
y'all.
going to have a life after prison. He'll
Thank
be
everyone
59,
for
60 years old,
binge watching with
59
me.
years old.
We
The judge says,
now
"I wanna
know
speak to the
his
strong women who
verdict.
came forward. Miss Ventura and Jane, you've been through trauma we can't imagine. Miss Ventura said it was..."
I'm gonna pause this, but it just goes to show you that Just make better decisions. But while I'm holding this camera, you know what? My furniture is so pretty. That's what I got to go put in my car, the first aid kit. But I thank everyone for watching I did 3 lives. One of them cut off, but I thank you all for watching. Thank you, giving credits to Law and Crime. I streamed their sentencing watch. It's just a reminder to us to guard your mind, because you never know what you will wind up doing. That's the reason I try not to judge people on the decisions they make, but just keep your mind covered, because people are making jokes about him today and it could be them tomorrow. So everyone have a good evening. I don't know if I'm going to come back live. I do have some inside information, but I might not share it. She may share it because I think I don't know. I better not say that because I haven't watched her page yet, but I know some things. I'm going to tell you, sometimes you just have to be at the right place at the right time. Divine connections are very important. Don't overlook people and don't mistreat people that you don't know, because they could be the biggest blessing in your life. And these people, they have been a blessing in my life. With that being said, as Charles, he be saying, without further ado, I will see you all later on another live. Maybe I'm going to try and do my storage probably tomorrow. I don't know. I think we're going to the fair. Tomorrow is Saturday. We might be going to the fair in Montgomery tomorrow because I think their fair started today. Is it day the 3rd? Yeah. The Montgomery fair started today. So we may go up there tomorrow. If not, I will be out there cleaning up my storage, getting rid of all the trash like I did in the house. Cleaned up, sorted all my folders. It's getting close to tax season. That's one reason I did it. So, yeah, I have enjoyed you all. Thank you for your likes, your comments. Thank you to a special person. She's kind of like my daughter. I took her on as my daughter. We talk. I pray with her. But just stay tuned. There's some good things about to take place. She's going to share those things with you all. I don't know when. But I got to start getting on TikTok more. I don't get on TikTok like I should. I'm on Facebook and YouTube a lot. So, see you all later. Love my trendsetters. We set a trend today. We were trending with Sean Diddy Combs. Oh, I didn't drop my camera.